Hello and thank you for joining us. Today we're going to try and answer a question we get asked fairly frequently, and that is how to deal with 23.976 video in Spot. So if you can stick around for a couple of minutes, hopefully this video will, if my cat stops sneezing, hopefully this video will answer that question. So here's a video I've just opened in Spot. It was encoded at 23.976 frames per second, and you'll notice it's got two burnt-in timecodes on it. The one on the left here is SMPTE timecode, and that represents time as hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. The one on the right is media time timecode, and that represents the time as hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds. And the thing about SMPTE timecode is that each frame is an integer or whole number fraction of a second. And that means that there is no SMPTE timecode for 23.976 video. That's because 23.976 cannot be evenly divided into whole frame numbers. And that leads to the astonishing conclusion that if your 23.976 video has SMPTE timecode on it, timecode that ends in frames, then this timecode is not running at the same speed as the video. It's not running at 23.976 frames per second. It's running at 24 frames per second, which is actually quite a handy thing, because if we move forward through the video a bit, let's go to about halfway through, about there, you'll notice that Spot's internal timecode here is not syncing to the media time timecode up on the right here, which is real time. It's syncing to the 24 frames per second SMPTE timecode here. So even if you select 23.976 as the frame rate when you open a video, it doesn't really make any difference. Spot will still treat it as if it were 24 frames per second. And if your client says, please sync your subtitles to the burnt-in timecode, and that burnt-in timecode is in frame SMPTE format like this, you've got nothing to worry about. You work at 24 frames per second, and then you export your file at 24 frames per second. But of course, things aren't always that simple. Your client might actually want a 23.976 file. You've just spent hours timing this at 24 frames a second, and your client's telling you it's all out of sync. They want 23.976. So how do you get 23.976 out of 24 in Spot? But before I do that, let's have a look at how you do it the other way around. How do you sync a file that was timed at 23.976 with a video in Spot, which we now know is running at 24 frames a second? So on the left here, this is an SRT file I imported. It was timed against the media time here. So that is running at 23.976. The video, as we know, is running at 24. And what happens? Well, have a look at these subtitles and have a listen.
It is easier about it is that we're always trying to find new ways to get our players out to people, so you have the player that you need to watch streaming media. If you get the new IE4 browser now, you actually...
And as you could see there, the subtitles are coming in too late. They should be coming in earlier. What we need to do is take each subtitles in time and shrink it by 0.999%. And we do that by clicking on Cues, Quick Fix, Shrink by 0.999. And having done that, now let's have a listen and see if that's improved the synchronicity.
Ways to get our players out to people, so you have the player that you need to watch streaming media. If you get the new IE4 browser...
And there you go. The subtitles are now coming in where they should. So let's try and answer that earlier question. How do we get 23.976 out of 24? You've timed your file at 24 frames per second, but your client wants a 23.976 media time file. What do? Well, you go up to Cues again, Quick Fix. This time you don't shrink, you stretch by 1.001. And that might sound weird. We're going from 24 to 23.976, but we have to stretch. That's because the seconds tick over faster at 23.976 and slower on the BITC timecode at 24 frames a second. So stretch by 1.001, and now your file is ready to export as a 23.976 frames per second file.